we're now going to be looking at polynomials. And polynomials are algebraic expressions. So algebra, which we know, but then there's expressions. And we haven't really talked about that before. So here is something that you might recognize with algebra. There are some y's in it, which maybe looks a little bit odd, how there's x's and y's. But what you'll notice is that there's no equal sign. So this is not an equation. It's an expression. It is when we work with polynomials, we are not trying to find out what x is. That's not what we're doing. When there's an equal sign, sure, find out what x is, or whatever the letter is, p or q or r, typically x. Rather, we are working with the rules of algebra and we're trying to simplify things. So we're going to have different signs, we're going to have things called coefficients, we're going to have variables, and we're going to have things that don't have any variables called constants. So we're always going to have all of these things. They're all going to be worked in here. So the easiest thing to do is maybe just take a look at this and just kind of point a couple things out. So x, y, that y, and that x. Those are all of my variables. So all of my variables are my x, my y, my x, my y, and my x. You can even include the cube, because that means there's just 3 x's. You can include the squared. You can include the 6. Okay? Now, the numbers that are in front, okay? So a positive 3, a positive 2, and this one, there's no number in front, so there is. We just don't write it. You might want to add that in. It's actually a negative 1. So these things are all called coefficients. So you can write that a little bit neater. Those are all the numbers that are in front of the variable. But we also have a number that isn't attached to any variable, isn't attached to any letter, and that we always call the constant. If I can even actually spell that. Constant. So those are the things that you need to know. You need to know the variables, the constant, and the coefficients. And the coefficients are sneaky because they can sometimes not have a number attached to them, in which case there is a 1. So we want to also look at the number of terms in a polynomial. So this whole thing is an algebraic expression, and we call that a polynomial here. And we will only be dealing with polynomials. What that actually means is that a polynomial is one that has letters in it, and the exponents are nice positive whole numbers. So you won't find a fraction up here. You won't find a negative sign up as an exponent. But we don't need to get into that. That's not what we're after here. You'll do more of that in grade 12. But what we do want to know is the number of terms in a polynomial can be used to give it a specific name. Poly means many, any number of terms. But there are some other ones. Mono would just be 1, bi would be 2, tri would be 3. So therefore we have monomials, binomials, and trinomials, something with 1 term, 2 term, or 3 term. After that, we stop counting and we just call them polynomials. So, how many terms are in each? So let's take a look at example 1. How many terms are there? So terms are separated, and I can actually write it down. So this might be a little helpful. Terms are separated by a plus or a minus symbol. So you can see in letter A, there is a minus sign, so we have 2 terms. And so we would call that a binomial. Bi would be 2, and then we just add the nomial after. Here, there is no plus or minus, so we only have just 1 term. And so we call that a monomial. Here, There is a minus sign, but it's not separating two things. So we just got a single thing is only one term, and we call that a monomial as well. There aren't any letters attached to that, so it actually has a special name. It's called a constant, which we looked at just before. But you can call it a monomial as well. Here, we've got a 5x squared that's separated by a 2x with the minus sign there, and there's a separation again. So you have three terms in this, and we call that a trinomial. And is there one more here? Yes, there is. How many terms are here? So there's a 1, there's a separation of a plus sign, a separation there with a minus sign, another separation with the minus sign. So you have 4 terms altogether. And we would call that, there's no special name. After 3 terms, we just go by polynomial. So we're going to stop it there. And I think I zoomed up enough here. And we'll go into question 2 here, example 2, which starts to look at the degree of something, which we haven't looked at before. So make sure you copy down any notes that you might need here, and let's move on to the next one.